Welcome back to GoDoBe EmPowerMe. I'm Joe Goskomski, your host, your guide, and your coach throughout this journey. Now, in the last module, we did something very important. We unmasked the doubter in the room. We acknowledged the little voice in our own heads, the one that whispers, I can or I can't. We all have it, this constant, intimate companion that either helps us change and grow or that prevents us from doing so. We also looked at what research tells us about the role that our genes or traits play when it comes to achieving our human potential or success. And we recognize that it's not just what we have or what we're born with, but it's also about what we do with what we have or the environment that we put ourselves in. In an earlier session, we decided that we will move towards our goals based on concrete plans whereby we choose the design of our future, rather than simply hoping, wishing, or praying that things are going to work out just the way that we want in the end. Today, we're going to continue to add some additional insights that support this idea of performance excellence and success. The way that we're going to do this is by looking at what we're going to call the wisdom of the ages and what that wisdom tells us about success in life. So let's first ask the question, what do we mean when we say the wisdom of the ages? Well, the ages refers to a long history of time that came before us. The word wisdom refers to knowledge that is gained through experience when good judgment is used. It's about the idea that knowledge or information that we've gained is valid, real, and legitimate. And how do we know that it is? Well, it's because it's been tested time and time again. That's the essence of true or real wisdom. I stress this so that we can better differentiate between real wisdom, the ideas that we're going to talk about, and the massive flood of garbage information that we're bombarded with each and every day. Let me give you an example of what I mean here. When someone today posts or pushes out their thoughts or their belief on some social media platform or tool, now just because they posted it, and maybe because we know them, we might even like them or we might even want to be like them, we tend to simply accept their idea as true. Now, just because we know them, like them, or even want to be like them, that doesn't actually mean that what they're saying or what they're telling us is true. That's just their point of view or their preference. That's not wisdom. Wisdom and the idea of truth, they're not screams. They don't try to drown out everything and everyone else. They are fleeting whispers that call to us softly. So when we talk about wisdom, I'm referring to those historically notable, successful, and or acclaimed individuals who lived throughout the eons, whether it's from 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, doesn't really matter. So, who are these historical individuals that I'm referring to? And what are their messages? What is it that the words, the writings, the whispers of the greats who came before, what do they say to us? What are they trying to tell us? Well, surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, depending on what you already know, the words and the voices that came before us, they give us clues as to how we can be happy, healthy, and successful in our lives. Okay, so who are they that left these clues? Who are these champions, the leaders, the visionaries of days gone by? If they're so smart, how come I haven't heard their ideas in use every day? Shouldn't it be obvious to everyone, including you and I? Let me answer that question this way. Just because I don't see the sun once it sets below the horizon, it doesn't mean that the sun is gone forever. And it certainly hasn't disappeared into oblivion. Of course it hasn't. It just means that I just don't see it, but it's still there. The same thing is true about the ideas of old. Just because we don't recognize that someone is using them, it doesn't actually mean that they're not being used. They are. Every successful individual uses them all the time. Some don't even realize that they're doing it. Well, let's start with these. Almost 200 years ago, William James, a great American philosopher, historian, and psychologist, wrote that the greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives simply by altering their attitudes of mind. So let's reflect on this for a second. What is it that James is telling us? James is essentially telling us two things. First, that we can change our future. And second, that the way we change our future is by changing how we think. How about this one? Mankind is what he or she believes. That is from Anton Chekhov, a playwright and short story writer. He lived almost 200 years ago. So what is it that Chekhov is trying to tell us? Well, he's whispering to us that our condition, that where we are today in this moment, is a result of what we believe. Or how about this one? People only see what they're prepared to see. That's from Ralph Waldo Emerson, a lecturer, philosopher, abolitionist, and poet. Emerson lived over 200 years ago. What is the message that Emerson suggests? He's trying to tell us that our reality is exactly what we expect it to be, that we tend to accept that which we already believe to be true. Then there's this. The thing always happens that you really believe in, and the belief in it makes it happen. That was written by Frank Lloyd Wright, architect, designer, writer, educator. He lived about 150 years ago. So what is Wright telling us? Well, Wright is explaining that what happens to us in life is somehow connected to what we believe is going to happen to us in life. But there's more. How about this whisper? All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. That was written a long time ago by the Buddha. He lived over 2,500 years ago. So what do the words of the Buddha say to us? Well, he's telling us two key ideas. First, that our minds are very, very powerful. And second, that what we put in or see in our mind, somehow we become. Then there's this memorable passage. Think you can, think you can't. Either way, you'll be right. Those words are from Henry Ford, an industrialist and business magnate who revolutionized the auto industry. Ford lived 150 years ago. And what is Ford telling us? He's reminding us that what we think becomes true or right for us. But we're not done yet. How about these words? The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. That's from Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and philosopher who lived 1900 years ago. And what is Aurelius telling us? He says that the happiness that we experience in our life, our world today, right now, ultimately depends on the thoughts that we have in our own heads. How about this? For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. That's from the Bible, King James translation, Proverbs 23. It was written 2,000 years ago. What is this passage from the Bible all about? It's trying to tell us that what we truly believe deep in our hearts is who and what we are or become in this world. Next is this. Change your thoughts and you change your world. Norman Vincent Peale. He's a clergyman and author who lived during our lifetime. What is Peale telling us? He's telling us that our life and our thoughts are somehow, they're interconnected, they're interlinked. And how about this one? Happiness does not depend on outward things, but on the way we see them. Leo Tolstoy, a Russian writer who was born 200 years ago. What is Tolstoy telling us? His wise words are telling us that the joys that we experience in life, they don't depend on the world outside of us. Instead, they come from inside us, from our inner world. Or there's this one, a message that we learned in a previous module from Kahlil Gibran, a writer, poet, artist, and philosopher who lived about 100 years ago. He wrote, "We choose our joys and our sorrows long before we experience them." So what is Gibran telling us here? Well, he's hinting that all of us already have decided what we're going to experience in our lives, good or bad. We make that choice in advance. And a final one for now. A man who plants melons will harvest melons, and a man who plants beans will harvest beans. That's an old Chinese proverb written a very long time ago. So what is this proverb telling us? Well, it's telling us something that should be obvious to everyone. Yet, oddly enough, a lot of people still don't understand that the world that they live in today is based on the seeds that they planted yesterday. I think you get the idea here. What I've just shared with you is a minuscule fraction of a fraction of the relevant messages throughout history. How things happen in life, how success or failure unfolds. It is no mystery. There is no real secret to it. It's just part of who we are as a species. It's actually written in our DNA, and it's available to all of us. Now remember, it's not me who wrote those ideas, those quotes. It's not me that's telling you that you might want to think about them. And it's certainly not me that's telling you that they are true or valid. No, it's the countless voices from the past. These messages are from individuals who are remembered because of what they accomplished. They did something meaningful throughout history. They've left a legacy that has stood the test of time. They are not from some guy or some gal or some group who self-proclaims that they know what's best for us or that their messages are the right message. So now which one do you think you and I should start to believe? The one that whispers or the one that screams? Think about it. You can give a monkey a microphone, but should you believe what it yells into it? Now, I'm not suggesting that the guy or the gal or the group that's currently giving us messages is bad or wrong. Not at all. They might be right. I don't know. What I am suggesting is that anyone can say anything today, and we shouldn't just believe everything that we hear or read, at least not without asking some questions and validating it for ourselves. We owe this to ourselves. Remember, our goal in this program is to become the shepherd, not the sheep. We are the driver in life, not the passenger. So let's go back to the voices from history and consider for a moment what we might have noticed. What is similar about them? What do all the messages from the past have in common? What is that golden thread that is independent of historical period, of culture, of race, of social identity, and all the other terms that we use to make us separate? Take a moment and reflect on that. Yes, these messages from the past are telling us something very fundamental about human nature and about the human potential. They all seem to whisper to the core ideas that the power to change comes from our choice, and that the ability to make that choice already exists within each of us, within our mind, yours and mine. I said to you early on in this series that we already have what we need. We just need to put those pieces together in the right way, at the right time, and in the right sequence. Now, isn't that interesting? That the human mind, within it, there seems to be something special. Good, because that's exactly what we're going to explore in much more detail in some of the coming modules. For now, let's just consider for a moment and simply ask the question of, is it really possible? Could it be true that so much of our success in life depends on something, on a process that goes on inside our heads? Let me give you a clue as to the correct answer to that question. The correct answer has 3 letters, and it starts with a Y and ends with an S. So for today's session, what is the lesson that we've learned from history? We learned that success starts with choice, and choice is something that we have the power to make. So now this brings us to the end of today's module, and it's time for our takeaway activity. I want you to find your journal, open it up, start a new page. I want you to think back in your life and see if you can find 2 or 3, maybe more, personally memorable or motivating quotes. Ones that speak to you and to your heart in some way. Those that resonate within you, that inspire you, that give you the strength or courage that you need every once in a while. If you can't think of any, then just do a quick web search on something like great quotes about courage, resilience, or strength, or love, or faith, or compassion, or whatever other topic is meaningful for you. Once you find them, I want you to write them down in your personal journal. In this way, if we ever need a little bit of inspiration, we know exactly where to go. So here's our final thought for this session, and it's one of my favorite quotes from earlier today. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. That's from Gautama Buddha. Until I see you next time, have an absolutely amazing day. See you very, very soon.